Hey, it's time for another Wisdom of the Masters. I am Sean Webb. Today's wisdom comes from Lao Tzu, which is the way you're supposed to pronounce the name Lao Tzu. If you want to be a pretentious asshole like me, I pronounce his name Lao Tzu, which is how Chinese people pronounce it and how he pronounced it probably, although, pronunciations grow over time. Yeah, it's one word. Laozi is his name, and kind of defines him as old man is what it means in Chinese. And but we somehow split that into two words and misspell it and yada yada yada. But one of his favorite quotes, getting us back on track, of mine is the following: to know that you do not know is the best. To think that you know and you do not is a disease. Recognizing this disease as a disease is to be free of it. Okay, so Lao Tzu has this awesome way of being able to identify the challenges of man and the truths of humanity in single sentences, single phrases that say a ton of stuff in just a few words. And this is one of his greatest from my perspective. And let's dig into why I think that. Starting with the first line, to know that you do not know is the best. I mean, we could look at that as a general piece of advice that's a good suggestion for just about any piece of information. To know that you do not know something is the best, because then you can go out and search for the truth of that reality that you're looking to understand more about. And so if you understand that you don't know what you want to know, then yeah, you can go look for it, etc. But in his first line, what he's talking about isn't any general piece of information. What he's talking about specifically when he says to know that you do not know is the best is talking about the truth of your true self. To understand that you do not know who and what you really are is the best, because then you can start to seek within and discover the truth of who and what you are. And this is exactly what he's talking about. This, if you don't know Lao Tzu, he's a really wise dude, and his Lao Tzu book, which is simply the title of the book that in China of his writings that we call the Tao Te Ching, is called the Lao Tzu. And it's the second best-selling book, I think, to the Bible in the world, because he's so smart on a lot of this stuff. So what he's talking about here is the truth of your inner existence. He's talking about the reality of humanity. To know that we do not know who and what we are is best, because then we can start to seek within to figure that out. But his second line really lays out the trauma of the world in one sentence or one line. To think that you know when you do not is a disease. Now, there's a couple of things that I like about this second line. To think that you do not, to think that you know when you do not know is a disease. To think that you know when you don't, meaning to buy into your ego, to buy into the fact that you think you know who you are, to think that you know your true existence because your mind tells you, oh, I am my name, I am my body, I am my job, I am all the people that are connected with me in my world, I am all my worldly possessions, I am all my thoughts and feelings and opinions, I am all the things that my mind attaches to. To think that you know when you do not know is a disease. Now, the word disease here is frigging masterful, because what is a disease but a sickness that is passed from one person to another in many cases, or something that happens naturally that causes you harm, right? That's what a disease is. And in this case, he is completely accurate in using that word, because what is the ego but a sickness of the mind that naturally occurs that causes us harm? Because if you read my red book, Mind Hacking Happiness, which if you haven't read Mind Hacking Happiness, you need to probably back up, go off into a corner, contemplate where your life went wrong, and maybe blame your parents, because it's an amazing book and it explains where all evil comes from and all pain and suffering comes from a scientific perspective, including all the studies that exist that bring us from not knowing anything to you understanding your human mind, which is a really cool thing to do and a cool place to be. In that book, I show how the ego, how the mind's understanding of self, how your definition of self is what the limbic system checks for threats against, and then also creates all of your negativity, all your negative emotions, all your negative narrative within your mind is all connected with this fake thing called self within you that's not really your true self, but it's simply the thing that your mind points to when you say, hey, who am I? And your mind starts to answer those questions. Every answer that it could formulate is your mind's self. And that thing right there is connected with every bit of your pain and suffering in life and every bit of societal ills, by the way. All anger, all violence, all stealing, all crimes against humanity, all murders, all everything is connected with this thing called self and the reactions of defensive self within the individual. So when Lao Tzu is talking about to think that you know and you do not is a disease, first of all, he's talking about the mind's automatic creation of the self that creates all of our pain and suffering. But then also a disease is something that's passed from person to person. We teach our kids everything it is that, who are you? Well, you're your name. Oh, well, you're the thing that you see when you look in the mirror. Oh, you're the thing that you own. Pick up your stuff in your room, right? We teach them that their identity is wrapped around this self within their mind. And so we reinforce it as parents and as a society and as, have you gotten this latest, greatest thing that'll make your life happier? Adding more to your self map, adding more things to the stuff that you own. Are you making enough money? Do you have that second beach house? Whatever it is to create happiness for you. We pass that from person to person down through the generations to say, you're this definition of stuff in your head. And the reality is that's not true. You are the thing that's beneath that. You are the thing that's beyond that. And when people awaken to that, their whole life changes. A lot of their pain and suffering goes away. Life becomes an amazing journey that you're surfing every moment of every day, and nothing can set you into a tailspin. It's awesome, right? And so we pass this from generation to generation, and it's happened for thousands of years. I think we might be finally ready to break out of it with this communications technology that we have to be able to start to communicate that here's how you transcend that ego self, that mind's self thing, and here's the process that you use to break from that and find out who and what you really are in your mind, right? We're ready to do that. But what he's talking about is the tendency that we don't. That where 99.9% of the world's population is right now is that's stuck in their mind's self, that they're arguing about whatever it is that they're attached to on their mind's self and defending it and yada, yada, yada on Facebook. Oh, it's my politics. It's my religion. Oh, it's my, you're attacking whatever it is. Oh, the war on Christmas or oh my God, I can't believe you insulted redheads. Whatever the fuck it is. It's all connected with a person's sense of self and defending that sense of self. And we pass that down from generation to generation. Here's the cool thing that he follows up with, though. Lao Tzu tells us recognizing this disease as a disease is to be free of it. Now, there's some science that actually proves that statement to be correct, because what he's talking about is being able to take a step back into meta-awareness and be able to see the mind and its reactions and its processes as they're occurring. Now, meta-awareness is a recently discovered psychological place within the mind that helps you take the mind and look back onto the mind, and it sets your awareness apart from the mess that is your mind. So all of this, mind self stuff and the defensive self and all this other stuff, if you can take a look at it, then there's some separation from it. Okay? Because a tooth can't bite itself, a fingertip can't touch itself, an eyeball can't see itself without a mirror and some distance, an olfactory nerve can't smell itself, taste bud can't taste itself, right? All of this stuff requires separation for a perception to be realized. And so when you can see your mind, when you can take your mind and look back in on your mind, then all of a sudden you realize, wait a second, I'm not quite my mind. I'm part of my mind. It's certainly affecting who and what I am during the day and how I feel and what I do, etc. But my complete existence must have a little bit of a separation between me and my mind, or I wouldn't be able to see my mind. There has to be some type of a separation for a perception of something to occur. And so when you're able to see your mind, so when you see this disease as a disease, when you see the process of your true existence versus your false existence of your mind, your true self versus your false self, all of a sudden, you're free of that process. because he says recognizing this disease as a disease is to be free of it. And that's truth, because when you step back into meta-awareness, from being in the mess of your mind to being able to see your mind, all of a sudden there's a separation between you and your mind. You realize that you're not your mind. You realize that you can control your mind, that your mind is something that you have, that's not something that you are, and that you can start to exist independent of your mind's processes. And this is something that science, and it's all written in the Mind Hacking Happiness Red book, that if you want to read about the science and the studies that prove all this stuff, you really should, because your life is going to suck until you do. That's exactly what he's talking about 2,500 years ago. That's how wise this dude is. Amazing, amazing wisdom in this master of old. So, again, to know that you do not know is best, because that gives you a direction of, oh crap, I have a false self that I believe is my true self, but I'm not sure if that's the real me. And then you can go searching within for the real you. And then to think that you know when you do not is a disease, and he's simply pointing out everybody has this disease because everybody thinks they know who they are and they're not looking for themselves within. And it's a disease because it causes us harm. We pass it on from one person to the next, and it happens naturally sometimes when we're not expecting it, and it's a negative thing for us. And then recognizing this disease as a disease is to be free of it, and that's scientifically proven through a number of studies in Mind Hacking Happiness Red Book, Volume 1, but that's the basic truth. When you're able to see your mind, you're free from the process of it. You've broken the chains that it is holding you down, holding you back, and making you believe that you're part of that bullshit system. Because you're not. You're not part of that. It's simply a part of your physiology. It's part of something that your body does to help you survive from one day into the next, but it's not your true existence. It's not complete consciousness. There's more in there that you can find. And this dude summed it up in 3 lines: the problem of the individual, the problem of humanity, and the freedom of the whole system. 3 lines. He could have stopped there, dropped the mic, and walked off for the rest of his existence. And we would have been, of course, we probably wouldn't have noticed. We're like, oh, this guy's one saying instead of a whole book of really cool stuff. So it's probably better that he did write all the other stuff that he had written or talked about. But he could have walked away by making that one statement and then saying, all right, I'm done. I'm out. See ya. Chew on that for 2,500 years. I hope things are well for you guys. Talk to you soon. Peace.
Share this shit.